This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. The podcast features conversations with musicians and music industry professionals, all intended to help musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Hey, it's your host, Rabanzo. Welcome to another episode. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I'm a longtime gigging musician, and you also know that I love sharing my personal experience and the things I'm learning from other musicians. You can be privy to those learnings by joining the Unstarving Musician community. In the process, you'll be supporting this podcast. Just go to unstarvingmusician.com to join. You'll get an email from me about every 7 to 10 days with insights you can use, all intended to make your music journey a little better and brighter. And you'll also get a free gift from me, a token of my appreciation for being part of the Rabanzo Nation. My guest for this episode is Lannie Flowers. Lannie is one of my career musician pals who resides in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas. In this second appearance for the podcast, Lannie discusses the long process of making his forthcoming album titled Home. The project has apparently been wrought with challenges, and I had no idea this was the case when I invited him back for the podcast. In fact, I was a little surprised at the magnitude of obstacles, challenges, and frustrations that have come along with the making of this album. It's worth noting here that the project inception was about 8 years ago as of the time of this recording. In addition to regular live stuff happening, the studio that Lannie is working with had a 3-month shutdown for renovations. The band Lannie's working with includes a couple of the busiest performing musicians in Dallas-Fort Worth. Then there's life happens type of stuff and a myriad of personal distractions. This has all made the scheduling of recording sessions a challenge, but there's an interesting challenge that I also see as part of the mix. Lannie and his label decided it would be cool to release a song per month for free download leading up to the release of Home. Great idea. However, none of these songs are going to be on the new album Home. Wait, what? You heard me right. The free downloads will not be on his upcoming album. There have been 8 songs in the free download campaign thus far. Great for fans, but not necessarily so great for Lannie, who's now managing 2 separate recording projects. You can get your hands on Lannie's free download singles at spiderpop.com, by the way. There are other factors at play here. Lannie's prior albums were mostly just Lannie. Now he's recording with a 5-piece band, and so he's regularly herding cats. I'm sure that Lannie's experiencing a little frustration, and you can hear it in our conversation. Is he having fun? Yeah, I believe he is. The life of an indie music artist. Life gets in the way. Life creates distractions. Lannie forges on. Lannie releases a free download single a month. There you go. You will hear one of those aforementioned singles at the end of this episode. It's a tune called Where Did All the Fun Go? Here's my chat with Lannie Flowers. Lannie, welcome back to the show.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Of course.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, of course. I'm sitting here wondering now, as we are finally talking again, how many episodes back I had you on, and I'm going to have to look that up while we're chatting here. So usually I get to tell people that I'm in the rainy season lately anyway, but I understand in the Arlington and Fort Worth area that there's a lot of rain right now.
Yes, we've been, we've had some good floods going here. It's, I'm looking for the ark is what that's how much it's rained. So.
Wow. Yeah, we actually we actually got a break here today. Although it did rain last night, and I take the dog down to the beach daily, and I thought, we might get rained on, but we didn't, and it's really pretty right now. So I was kind of tickled when my brother, who lives not far from you, said it was raining like crazy there, because I was like, well, that's what I should be saying. So it was episode 27 when I had you last, and this one that we're recording today is going to be 74. Can you believe it?
Wow.
74 weekly episodes. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into when I started this thing.
Well, it's obviously working out for you.
Well, I'm certainly having fun. And I just kind of put the last edits and, writing the blog post for the episode that will precede yours, which is with a guy named Lance Harville, who's from Dallas. He kind of came up around those Pantera boys and ended up playing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he ended up playing on Rex Brown's solo album that came out last year. But what I was going to say is that, like a lot of you guys, when I talked to you, he was just, after we spoke and we're exchanging some messages about some stuff, in the couple days that followed, he was just, making some really nice comments about our conversation, and it made me, talking about the podcast, reminded me of how lucky I feel that I get to chat with all you nice guys and girls. Yeah.
You were talking about the Pantera guys. We used to play with them some, I used to play in bar bands, and we would cross paths back a long time ago, and, Daryl was just like 16 years old, and I was going, who is this kid? I mean, I wasn't much older than him, but I was just going, man, that guy's good. So,
yeah.
But they went on. We went off on different, circles, but we used to cross paths quite a bit back a long time ago.
Yeah, it was funny listening to Lance talk about his first encounter. He was, you may remember this. I remember Savvy's, the club, and that's where.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's where Pantera, got their start. But Lance he was a minor when the first times he saw Pantera, and he was reminding me, like I didn't remember it, but he said there was kind of a caged area for minors that, kept them basically separated from the club where drinks were served. Do you remember that?
You know what? Here's the funny thing. We used to play there back when the drinking age was 18 in Texas.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it changed back to 21 at some point. I don't remember, but we played there for like 3 nights in a row, and the first 2 nights were the last 2 nights that 18-year-olds could drink, and it was just packed to the gills. I mean, just packed. And then the night after it changed, I don't know if anybody was in there besides us and the bartenders. So they started having to change it to where, the minors were over here and the rest of the people were over there.
Ah, interesting. Well, I remember that there were a couple of changes. It went to 19, but I don't remember for how long, and then it went to 21. I bet it was 19 for probably a year.
Yeah, it went to 19 and then 21. Yeah, I guess it was 19 at that point, and then it went to 21.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, he was telling me like he'd be sitting back in his cage, and he ended up getting a gig, just oddly enough, with a band he was in, a cover band, to open for Pantera, and he was still underage, so he was like 17 at that time, and his mom's there with him, playing with him.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Memories. So
I used to sneak in underage bars and play too when I was younger, when I was in high school, and I just remember, going to school the next day, and after about 2 hours of sleep, trying to get through it. But yeah, I used to do the same thing. But one thing is, they just never used to ask us. They just booked the band, we'd show up and play.
Crazy club owners.
Yeah.
The trouble they would get into these days.
Yeah, things weren't as strict as they are now. So
yeah. Well, last time we spoke, I remember I kind of framed our conversation for the podcast around being how I call it scrapping together a career as a musician, and we talked a little bit about songwriting and studio work, and I was asking you about some of your experiences with some awards that hadn't happened too long ago. But today, since we last spoke, you've been recording tracks, I know, for a new album, and I hope I have the title right. It's going to be March to Home. Is that correct?
It's just called Home.
Okay.
The March to Home thing was a thing that Spider Pop came up with. We're doing a free download every month. You can go to the website and get it. It's only up for a month, and then a new one comes out. But that's just like the March to Home.
I get it. Well, if I was keeping up with the whole campaign a little better, I would have known that maybe. But
also the first one was in March, so I guess that might have added to that. I don't really know. I just write them.
That's funny. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about the album is, are you co-writing with anyone on it?
No, on this, everything is already written, a while back. We're just trying to get it all recorded and get it out, basically. Life gets in the way of whenever you're trying to do something, life gets in the way of trying to get it done, and that's what's been happening with this album. So, it's just been a comedy of errors, things going wrong. But anyway, so right now we're just trying to get this record out and then kind of take everything from there. But that's our main focus. And just the studio that we've been working in, that the Spider Pop people own, they shut down for 3 months remodeling. So that was the last. It's really nice now. They have a big, nice SSL board and all that, but there's just been different things getting in the way. And as you know, playing with Neil and Brandon, they play all the time.
So is it the Lannie Flowers band that I saw way back when at the IPO festival that's doing the musician work with you on the album?
Yeah.
Cool. And so when those guys were shut down for 3 months, were there no sessions during that time?
No, I have a studio at my place, but it's not big enough to do a band thing. So, but I just make demos and send them to those guys, and we get together and work it up, and then go into the studio. But for a while there, we didn't have studio to go into, so that was the hold up there. And just every time we were going to do something would happen. They'd get a gig, or somebody get sick, or just on and on and on. Just been one of those situations.
Oh my, yeah, I can imagine. And is John Stevens? Did I get the guitar player's name? Yeah. Is he playing on it as well?
Yeah, he'll be playing on it.
Does he play as much as those other guys do?
Well, no. He does other things. They didn't play. Nobody plays much of a Love Box does around it, except maybe Big Mike or somebody like that.
Yeah, or what's his name, Chris Responti.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious. I don't see. I'm only acquainted with John, and but he hung out with us, if I remember right, when I came into town once. But I don't see much about like on Facebook or anything about him gigging, which is why I asked. And that's what I meant. Does he gig much, or maybe I guess he does a little bit and does recording projects and whatever else he's got going on. But you mentioned life getting in the way, and years ago, I don't know why, but it's probably because one of these things, like what happened to that band, and why did they take 15 years or whatever to do a follow-up album? This is probably 15 years ago that I had this thought, whoever it was I was thinking about, and yeah, it dawned on me that all these guys are just people, and life gets in the way and things happen. But is this kind of a normal, like, how many albums have you done now?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3 or 4. No, 4, I guess, counting the live thing that we did in New York. I guess 4, and then a bunch of singles.
So at least 3 studio albums, and okay, the singles count them, and maybe the live one too. But is this pretty typical of just various things going on that kind of push the schedule out, or has it been for any reason more amplified this time?
For me, the older ones were basically me playing in my garage, in my studio, and just working. And so I didn't really have to mess with anybody's schedule except mine or somebody I might bring in until a little later on. But yeah, the more people you get involved, the more the schedules conflict. So it just takes a little longer.
I was about to. Yeah, I was about to say I see why artists would have actually more people working on an album, like, say, 3 different drummers and 2 different bass players because of schedules. Whenever we start talking about doing this project, none of us had any idea that we'd still be working on it at this point in time. But everything happens, and there's not anything you can do about it, and just. You just have to go with it. It's like, as you know, being a musician traveling, you have to just go with things because things are just going to happen. And if you don't go with it, just go with it, then you're just going to basically stay upset all the time.
So
yeah, and I
kinda
didn't.
have to
You
learn.
mentioned traveling as a musician, and I didn't do a lot of that, but I know just playing in bands that it took me a long time to. Well, I just think of one scenario in particular. It just took me forever to sort of let go of like, okay, this is just how it is. I'm not going to sweat it. It's not me. It's them. No. but yeah, that's so true. When did you think that? When did you start working on this album officially, and when did you think you were going to be done?
Okay, here was the original plan. This goes way back before I even started playing with these guys that are playing on this record. Was at 2010, I put out an album called Circles, and this was going to be the answer to it, or whatever, the next progression. If that makes any sense. Um, I was out of work at that time, and so I was home a lot, so I just wrote a lot of songs, and I just realized that a lot of these songs just had the word home in them. I didn't do it on purpose. It just, and then I could realize, well, I kind of tell the story a little bit if you think about it. And so I started putting all that together. And then I realized the last song on Circles, the last word on the record is the word home, which is all just a big coincidence. But I thought, well, that'd be a great lead in to this. And then, as I said earlier, life gets in the way, and I did a million other things. I'm just now getting around to doing what I wanted to do 8 years ago, whenever it was, 7 years ago. I don't know.
Wait, so are you telling me the whole thing kind of started about 7 years ago?
Oh, well, really, probably a little earlier than that, but yeah.
Wow.
7 or 8. I mean, we didn't start recording them, but that's when I wanted to do it.
Yeah, sure.
That was, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, now I haven't asked a lot of my guests about this, but I've heard a couple of them talk about it, about like imposing deadlines on themselves. But, not every one of these scenarios that I'm thinking of involved multiple musicians. They were like, well, yeah, in some cases they were, but in some cases just a solo artist. So that's a whole different thing. But have you, are you kind of a deadline guy, or do you just kind of best of intentions and see how it goes when you do these projects, or how do you approach them?
Well, I'd like to be a deadline guy, but it just never seems to work that way with this, with whatever I get involved with, because sometimes I'm kind of like a dog, and I just get easily distracted, like Shiny, and I go the other way, and and I get to work with him. Okay, well, let's do that first. That kind of thing.
I get it. I had a friend. I actually started a second podcast, and I interviewed this one's kind of more business oriented. I interviewed a guy, and he is helping other people in his line of work. He's basically like a freelancer, which is kind of like a musician, right? But he helps other freelancers in his field build a sustainable business like he has by having them, niche down and focus on just basically narrow the focus of everything they do, figure out what it is they like to do, and don't do any of the other stuff. But he reminded me, and it wasn't a new concept to me, but he had this beautiful illustration too of how it works, of how working on one project at a time until it's complete can actually get you through all your projects or all your whims or whatever things you get distracted by. You can actually get them all done faster. And the illustration, which maybe you've seen something like this before, but the illustration is just that when you bounce between them, it takes longer to get any of them done, which is, it was a great reminder for me. And I thought, this is so applicable to musicians too. Like, I haven't heard a lot of you say that you struggle with this kind of thing, but I was like, I know that some of them are.
Yeah, it's tough because you can get 3 or 4 things going at the same time, and it's hard to finish any of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But like these monthly free downloads that I've been working with some guys in Nashville. So I work here and send them stuff, and they send it back, and so try to do 2 or 3 at a time.
And what are they doing in
And they're all
Nashville?
just, I'm sorry?
Who are you working with in Nashville, or more specifically, what are they contributing? What are they doing?
Uh, Drums and guitars, and I, just to make it go faster, I just have them mix these singles too, because that just gets more into the time that I'm trying to spend finishing this album.
So does that mean you have some guys?
Real good.
Does that mean you have some guys that are actually tracking for you in Nashville too, or they're just
Yeah.
Okay. So you do have multiple people working on it.
Yeah, on these singles. Now the album is a whole different thing. So it's just two separate situations, which goes back to what we were just talking about, trying to finish something.
Oh wow! So does that mean that the singles will be different in some or most cases from what ends up on the album? Somewhat.
Yeah, because the singles are more like radio friendly or whatever. I don't know, whatever the word is. And the album's more of a project. It's more of a piece of work, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but it's more of a story. It tells more of a story, and it all kind of goes together in a weird kind of way. And it's more like a piece of art, if you want to look at it that way. I wouldn't, but and these singles are just songs. They don't particularly mean anything. They're just little pop songs.
But you'll literally have released the singles, and then they're essentially going to be redone, at least to some degree, by the guys that I are mutual friends that record and tour with you. Is that right?
No. The album is a whole completely different set of songs. These are just these. I don't know. They may come out on something someday, but they're just a free download for a month, and then the next one comes out. And it's just the record company asked me if we could do that, just to draw people, to the website. I go, yeah, that sounds good. It'd be about 4 or 5 months, of course.
I wonder if how many people are like me. I wonder how many people like me are like, oh, these are cool. These are going to be on the album, but maybe some of them will end up on there, but you're basically working on brand new material for the album outside of these singles that you're releasing.
Yeah, the singles don't have anything to do with the album. So.
Ah, wow. That's interesting. That means you had a lot of archival stuff to work with. Now, so the songs that are going on the album, I think you said this earlier, that they were written a while back, most of them. Is that right?
Yeah, or either started, the idea of the song. Some songs for me get written right away, and then some of them, they just hang around for a long time. I always have the melodies. It's just the words. It's easy to tell a story, but it's hard to make it rhyme. So that's what, sometimes I have an idea for a song, but, then you have to make every other line rhyme or whatever to make it all go in the song. And that's the hard part for me sometimes.
Sure. I'm thinking about like people that listen to this, other musicians who write in different styles who might be going, no, you don't. But I know, I know the way you write though, and the style of music that you do, and it makes perfect sense to me. But yeah, I'm just immediately going, oh yeah, but some writers are like, you don't have to do that. But I get it. And your songs always sound fantastic too. And I'm sure that is one of the many little elements that go in there. So everything then is being produced locally for the album, right?
Yeah. I may have the guy in Nashville I know mix some of it. I don't know yet. We'll just it's a process.
When do you think you're going to be done with it? What's your wish? What's your dream? What's your hope?
Well, I told you when I wanted it to come out. So at this point, I'm not really upset about one way or the other. But we just basically pushed it back till early next year, just because Danny Wilkerson's album just came out on Spider Pop, and then Bill Lloyd has a new one coming out, and then Pat, I can't think of his last name. He used to play for Hall & Oates and different people. Anyway, he's got a new one coming on Spider Pop, so I don't want to have to,
compete.
I don't want to compete with all those. And then by that, it'll be Christmas, and nobody wants to put out a record at Christmas time because it just gets lost in the shuffle.
So tell me about Bill Lloyd. I'm not familiar with him. So I'm asking you, assuming because of your relationship with Spider Pop Records, that you kind of know you're familiar with all the artists and their stories. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, Bill Lloyd has been around for a long time. He was in a country duo back in the late '80s, I think it was, called Foster and Lloyd, and they had some hits. And then he's just been like a pop guy. I had no idea, I didn't put the two together for a long time. But he has this new album he's putting out is phenomenal. They're just trying to get the vinyl right to put it. It should have already come out, but it's really good.
I saw Bill on Facebook this afternoon. I was watching a video of you. I'm pretty sure it was him, you, Danny and some other guys doing, doing the Tom Petty tribute thing or a Tom Petty cover.
Yeah. That was a little CD release party for Chris that they had at Arlington. Obviously, it was at Gilligan's, and he came into town, and Bill came into town, and we were just up there playing because everybody kind of played their little set, and then at the end of the night, we all just kind of got together and jammed to that. Also, Bill has a band in Nashville called the Long Players, and they take like a classic album and do the whole album, but they bring in different people to sing every other song. So I've gotten to do a few of those. I got to do Highway 61, and we did Tom Petty's first album, and a couple others. Oh, David Bowie, Hunky Dory.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Those are always fun. But anyway, that's how I met Chris, because he's done some of those. I think he's from Virginia, somewhere up in there.
Interesting. Yeah. So for those of you listening, if you're curious and you're into pop music, spiderpoprecords.com, their artist page you can check out a lot of these guys. Spider Pop, I knew was a boutique shop. When I was looking at them again this afternoon, I thought, wow, these guys really are super boutique, but I'm not sure that I see everything that they do. Do they have a really small number of artists that they're currently working with? Has it always been that way? Was that sort of the deal that they were going to do, from the beginning?
Yeah, it's a small independent label, so there's only so much you can do. I think they would like to expand. It's just, the way the music business is now, you have to really take, baby steps. You can't really take big major steps like in the old days. You just get a band, send them out on the road, and have them get some experience and all that. But there's not a lot of money to throw around like there used to be, as you know. I'm not telling you anything. You don't know.
It's been interesting though to talk to different artists. Like, so a guy who's been in, you may know, he lives in your neck of the woods also, John Christopher Davis, who's been at it.
I know the name. I don't know him personally.
Well, he's been at it a while too, and he spent some time in Nashville, and he knows Chris Responti very well. They play together a lot, and they have and recorded together a lot. And so he, pretty good while back, got into licensing his music and into the world of boutique. I forgot what he called them, but basically music catalogs for licensing. And that's been like a huge thing for him. But he, I think more interestingly though, he's still, he's still enjoying playing. He plays out a lot, and he still seems very curious about how he will continue the career part of it, and seems excited. But I think it certainly helps that he figured out the part of it that he did a while back and has been doing well with it. And then yeah, I talked to a guy who will be out, and the guy mentioned Lance Harville, and another guy who's does most of his work is done at home. It lands in catalogs for use in film and TV. He doesn't, get out and gig a lot. You can't buy most everything he's ever recorded. You can't even buy because it's in a catalog somewhere for people who want to license it. But his sentiment on the music business is that it's just a complete mess. And it just kind of depends on who you talk to,
Nobody can figure out how to make money at it anymore.
Yeah.
I think one thing is we've raised a whole generation of people that just think that music is free, or, it's $10 a month on your phone, whatever. And it's nothing special to them. Like, whereas when I was coming up, you had to go to a store, you had to pay money for a record, and you take it home and you look at it and you put it on, and so you kind of had to like that thing because you just spent your money on it. And now that's just background music, and it's just fluff, whatever. I think for a lot of people that, whereas music used to actually mean something, but we didn't have, video games and 5,000 channels on TV and yada, yada.
Yeah, there are these pockets where people enjoy hearing songwriters, and hopefully occasionally, the full live experience of band, which is what I think you and I are most drawn to. I loved listening to a good songwriter and singer and everything, but there's nothing like watching a band, right?
Yeah, and the reason that we've just kind of put it out, we still do some stuff, but not as much as we were, but we're trying to get this record out so we can just put a new show together and go do that instead of just rehashing the same old thing.
Sure. Well, speaking of which, then, are you hoping to take it out on the road, so to speak?
Yeah, I would love to, but like I said, if you don't have anything new to push, just not, I don't know. You kind of go, and a lot of the, like on the East Coast up in New York, all the places we used to play, they're all closed up.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it seems like the music and, Texas in this area may be better than it is in other, like you used to have to go to New York or whatever, or LA, and it's still better in a sense, but everything's bigger, out there. But there's a lot of bars in Fort Worth, there's a lot going on right here. But as far as, original music, not always, but you still have pockets of it.
Sure. And I guess a little bit more of the original stuff out in Dallas. And I guess comparatively, like I heard some guys in Austin, I got to sit in on a podcast when I was passing through the state not too long ago, and hanging out with some guys in Austin, and they had just sort of commented on the, locally outside of where they were, where some good live music scenes were, and the general sentiment was that, yeah, Dallas kind of has a little bit of a scene. And I was like, really? It seems like it's got a lot, but I guess it's not like Austin. There's so many people out there playing.
No, Austin is, the thing I hate driving there now. I love Austin, but that used to be like our little secret, in Texas. Mm-hmm. Like, not everybody knew about Austin. Now everybody knows, and it's just blown up. It used to be just like a little place, but had great music and all this great stuff going on. And, you could just drive into town on a weekend and not have to put up with a bunch. Now it's like LA or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not that bad.
It seems like it's approaching madness, though, for sure. But there's still a lot of people out there, I think, that are pretty excited. Has the Lannie Flowers band ever had or has the festival market ever, and I'm talking sort of like the outdoor festivals, have you ever had success playing in those kind of things? We've it's a hard market to crack, but yeah, we've worked on that and done some, but not like I would want to,
It's just everything's tough because there's 5 million bands wanting to do the same thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure much of it is not entirely with festivals, but I know kind of like with everything, it's very relationship based, and so you got to get out and meet the right people. I had a guy on here also from Dallas Fort Worth, Roger Blevins, who is in Mingo Fish Trap. I guess that's kind of been his baby for a long time, and they've apparently make their living doing festivals, and we talk a fair amount about that on the podcast. Might be kind of fun to check out, but it does. Clearly, relationships are a thing, but it seems like he just sort of figured out some things about creating the right kind of appeal. And I'm like, yeah, I guess not everybody. Some bands are never going to have that, and some will. I guess you have to, as a band or an artist, have to have a certain type of personality, and then of course have the relationships. Yeah,
and I don't know how. I guess because I always sort of put bands together, so I just say what I'm going to be the singer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't join anybody else's band, so. And it's just maybe because I could remember the words, or I don't even know how that got started. But I've always been interested in, songwriting,
mm-hmm.
and just as a kid, listening to the Beatles go, they wrote those. Then maybe I could, And then of course the Clash and all those people wrote their own songs, and so I thought, well, got to be something to this,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Well,
I think 90% of it's just showing up, basically, isn't it?
Of course, yeah.
just do it and throw it out there and see if it sticks. And if it doesn't, throw another one out there.
Yeah, and you point out something, or reminded me of something, that some people have a knack for pulling musicians together for a band, be it a short-term thing or something where you have this longer relationship like you do with the guys that are going to be recording the album with you. And I think that's kind of part of your your toolbox or whatever that you carry with you on top of the songwriting and the singing and fronting and all that. You just kind of have a knack for pulling people together. And I'm sure it just largely comes from the enthusiasm of when they're all together and you do what you do, right?
Well, I realized a long time ago, like when I was 16 or so, that I was not going to be the next Jeff Beck. So I had to figure out a way to get into the music and, try to make a living doing it. So I always got people who were better players than me. So if I'm the best musician in your band, then you're in trouble, So I don't know. It's just one of those kind of things. If you have good players, it's gonna be good for the most part. Not always, but for the most part. They may not get along and it may not last very long, but if you can find another good musician. But it helped me out in life, I think, really, because I had to be the guy that 2 months into a road trip, one of the guys gets drunk and misses his girlfriend, wants to go home, and he's going to the bus station. I have to talk him down off the cliff and say, hey, we still have another month. You got, 4 or 5 guys counting on you to make their living. If you leave, then they don't make any money either. So anyway, I would just always had to hold the thing together. So it kind of helped me down the line in other aspects of life.
Lessons from the road, man. Wow, yeah. One of the many things I don't think about, I'm sure that anyone who's listening who's done what you do is like, yep, I've been there. But yeah, that's good stuff. I'm sitting there thinking of, I actually not that long ago, relative to how long I've been a fan, but was reading, it was probably the Keith Richards biography. I think of 2, though. There's another one that Bill Wyman did that was quite good. The 2 of them I recommended reading if you're a big fan of the Stones. But anyway,
I've read both of them.
Yeah, Brian Jones went through this period of just not showing up for gigs and stuff. And when you were telling me that story there without specifics, I was thinking you'd be like, "Don't be Brian Jones, dude. Don't be Brian Jones."
Yeah, don't be Brian Jones.
But that's got to be awful, like really hard. If it comes to fruition, not to mention the stress of having to, like you said, talk someone off the ledge and hope that you're successful and keep the thing going. That's crazy.
Well, it's usually alcohol induced, and the next day they wake up and they're fine. You just have to, you know what I mean? You just have to realize, hey, they just had too much to drink. Tomorrow, put a McDonald's hamburger in them, throw them in the van, and everything's good.
Oh man, that's great. That is great.
But and also I figured out early on that people are in the band for different reasons. Some guys just want the money. Some guys just want to meet girls. Some guys just really love music. It means a lot to them. And, everybody just, some guys just go, I just wanted to see the world and I don't want to join the army or whatever, So
do you try to find those things out when, like if you were recruiting someone new, next month or in January or something to go out on the road, do you try to find that out in the beginning, like what they want from the whole thing, or does it just sort of come out over time for you?
Well, you can't really come up to them and say, hey, why are you doing it? I mean, I guess you can, but you usually just find out after. It doesn't take long most of the time. Sometimes you can figure out just talking to them for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I asked the question.
Some people are more guarded.
Yeah, I get it. I could see that. I asked the question because I was just reminded of Ezra Van Seal, also from the area where you are, Oak Cliff.
Uh-huh.
He has done some really nice music videos, and I got to asking him, because we're talking, this is for the podcast, and he mentions having a crew of people out there, and I asked him, how in the world do you get, 12 to 20 unpaid volunteers to go out with you and make that video happen? And so he told me, it was a struggle for a long time, and a friend of his who is has a career in the nonprofit world he said he had to come to Jesus with me about, like, look, you have to figure out what people want from you before, on the outset. And so I was thinking about this when you said people join bands for different reasons, but anyway, the short of it is Ezra learned to find that out, because he said almost exactly like you were saying when you described the different reasons. He was like, some people want a relationship, with me of some sort. Some of them just want to get out of the house for a day and have a good time. Some of them are like budding musicians, and they would love nothing more than to do like he'll organize a thing for those kind of people who they'll go out and do a campfire night, take their guitars, and everybody jams, and it's just like the best thing ever for them. Point being, though, he learned that he had to spend time to find out what people are really after, and I guess that does take some skill, right? Because like you said, people can be guarded, and you have to have a lot of conversation. But you sound like you are really good at listening to people, and maybe over the years of doing this, because you said that oftentimes it comes out right away, just in talking to them.
I think, it was born out of necessity, basically, because you have to sort of be that way, because most people aren't going to be that way, and everybody goes their separate ways. But if you're trying to hold something together, I guess what I'm trying to say, somebody has to care enough to hold it together, because bands are really volatile. I mean, they just are.
Yeah. Especially
when you're younger, and there's just so many things that get involved. There's just so many things that can get in the way.
Yeah, I heard some seasoned pro or other, I can't even remember who this was, but they said that, the guys that they use for their bands or for their recording projects aren't always or necessarily the best musicians, but they're the right person for the project, or the right, the right person. Yeah.
There's, you just look at a lot of bands who got very big, but individually they weren't great musicians, but those 4 or 5 people were the only ones that could make that sound, that noise. you could get 5 really good musicians to play the same notes, and it just wouldn't sound the same. It's just like the Rolling Stones or U2 or just anybody made it huge like that. First time I saw U2 was at the Bijou in Dallas. There's about 50 people there or something, and I didn't know what. I just saw this band. I go, I don't understand what they're doing, but these guys are going to be huge, and because he wasn't playing chords on his guitar, he was just playing notes. I was going, what is he? What is this? It's like something from outer space for me,
That's a great way to describe it. Yeah. Wow. And they surely did. And I think
it didn't make sense, but it sounded great. So anyway.
That's funny. Yeah. And I think that the comment that this person had made, it maybe also spoke to the not so obvious things, that, obviously it's the guys that have the chemistry, but they're just guys that are in it for maybe some of the same reasons, in it for the right reasons. They're dependable.
Yeah.
There's all these different variables. That's kind of what I assume, but yeah, there's that chemistry, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very cool. Lannie, thank you again for, spending time with me. I'm glad that we got to do this again, and I hope that next time I'm in town, we'll actually run into each other. I think you had a gig last time I was there.
Yeah, I felt bad. I really wanted to meet up with him, but life goes back to life, gets in the way of a lot of things you want to do.
Yeah, don't feel bad. We will. I'll be back, and we'll do it again sometime soon. I appreciate the times that you have come out to see me, so it's always a good time.
I always enjoy it, so if that means anything.
It means a lot. It means a lot. All right, cool, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, take care.
So different, but memories just change or fade away. Sometimes they come back, if just for a moment, if just for a moment. It's already past. We're running around, always in a hurry, while life goes by and time just flies. It happens so quick, we don't even notice. So where did all the fun go? Tell me now, 'cause I don't know. Like a dandelion, it just blows around us, and look in time just took it away, all away, yeah. Nobody knows where it all goes. With things in your head, just all run together, but life passes by, nowhere to hide. Somehow you thought it'd be much better. So where did all the fun go? There's just nothing here today. Where did all the fun go? 'Cause everything was yesterday. It's that time on the memory that doesn't belong. Where is it all gone? I try so hard to hold on to the things that last, but it slipped right past me, and I just can't get it back. No, memories just fade from day to day. But when I was young, it was so different, but so much better.
Hey, thanks for listening. Question for you. Are you struggling to move your music journey forward? I can help. If not personally, then by referring you to the next best available resources. Schedule a free 15-minute call with me to find out if I can indeed help you. It's easy. Just visit unstarvingmusician.com/coaching to schedule your call today. Look for links to just about everything covered in this episode in the show notes at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. This episode was powered by the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, how to get booked and paid what you're worth over and over again. It's available on paperback, Kindle, and ebooks just about everywhere you can find them. It's also available as a standalone podcast called the Unstarving Musician's Guide podcast. You can learn more about the book and companion podcast at unstarvingmusician.com/book. I'd love it if you picked up a copy and would love it even more if you left a review. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.